Hey, hello everyone. So, yeah, I'm here outside, and actually I came in into the library today, and so anyway, I forgot my glasses, but let I thought let me make a video here. Based, it will be the continuation of what the content that I'm providing. So today I thought of discussing some of the core AWS services and other services, other related technologies as well, and mostly this will be from the core AWS services, and then at the same time I will say something about the other services, and I'll have one another video that will be specifically based on all the different tools and technologies, like just to go more and more deeper and more understanding. But this video will be more focused on AWS services. So as and what I will discuss is mostly is about what are the services used for networking, and the services used for databases, and the compute, monitoring and logging, machine learning, securing the application and infrastructure, and many and few other services actually. So that are mostly used. So I'll start with networking, and if you think about the networking, some creation of a private network, for example, when you have like a data center, or maybe a network is created within a LAN or whatever, right? So similarly, when you go to the cloud, when in on the AWS it's offering that you create your own private cloud, and then deploy the resources within your private network. So that private cloud will be dedicated to that like you, it will be your own secure network. So how you create it, is the service. It is AWS VPC, that is virtual private cloud. So virtually, this network is not on your data center. It is actually you're creating a VPC over the cloud and using the AWS infrastructure, and then some like a VPC will be created. So you have to remember. And then what I really believe is somebody who is working on AWS. I have seen people who come from who understand some of the services, and they think they go to maybe S3 Lambda, and then things like that. That is really important for sure to understand. But what I personally believe is something, the networking concepts, if somebody has a great understanding of the networking concepts, would be really very helpful, and to your like at your workplace. So any of the things that, so you will understand much better things very easily, how things were deployed and anything. So so any network, any your like a private network, think about the AWS VPC. I'll have a more in details discussion about VPC and all of its component in some dedicated videos, but I just gave a very high level on that. So VPC, so it has some components, and then the subnets are there. So VPC will be of like one of the larger CIDR, and then within that, based on the different so VPC is for a region, and you can create the VPC that spreads across like the whole AWS region, and the it will be of like some the maximum CIDR that it can have, like this is /16 CIDR block. I'll discuss everything later about all the CIDR blocks and everything, if you're not getting, but that is something the VPC. And then within that, based on the availability zones, you can have like a different subnets created for some smaller CIDRs. So you have a VPC, then the subnets are created for the different AZ levels. The subnets are created, and then security groups are also VPC components. People, most a lot of people, they don't really understand but yeah, it is something to know that security groups are also VPC component. Those security groups can be used to attach to the EC2 instances, to the network interface faces, and the resources within your private subnets in like in your VPC resources. You can attach the security groups. So those, so again, the VPC subnets, and then you have like the security groups. Security groups are at the resource level that you attach, and then you have knuckles, that NACLs, network access control list, that is one another VPC component. Those are at the subnet level. So security group are attached to the resources. Knuckles are at the subnet level. Then you have other VPC components, and internet gateway is there, and NAT gateway is there for from private subnet to communicating to the outside world and into the public subnet, and to the going to the internet. Then some NAT gateways are there, and then you can use NAT gateway is one AWS offering actually, but there are some proxies servers that you could use. I'll discuss some of that later. You can have some proxy server created, and that will be routing all your the organizational that from the private resources to reach out to the internet. Some proxies can also be used. So that is one another thing. But from AWS offering, and then AWS side, it is the AWS VPC that is NAT gateway, actually NAT gateway. So that is one another VPC component. And then direct connect is there, the AWS direct connect, that is actually connects from the data center to the VPC cloud. Like it's just a connectivity between the on-prem to the cloud. It's actually a wired connection. So that's something it's very interesting. This is something most of the people when on to the work, they, unless they are working as a network engineer or at the networking side, they really don't have to do anything about this direct connect or anything. But that is something I really like. I'll mention in my more details in the other videos, and also VPN, so virtual private network. That is something. It's not a wired connection, and it is the data will flow over through the internet, but that is a secure connectivity from the like from anywhere from the data center to the VPC to the resources in your VPC. That is one another thing. The VPC. So far we were just discussing the VPC, and I will really stress on understanding what the CIDRs and how the subnets are. This is really very important, how the subnets are assigned to the availability zones, VPCs, or for the region. And then the other important, very important resource to understand is the security groups. That is all the rules are defined for in the security group when it is attached to the resource. So a security group have the rules for the network of flow, what kind of a traffic can go out, what kind of a traffic can come in. So that is one another thing. So I will discuss more different services now, and then for VPC and all other, I'll have more videos created for it. Now let's look into some of the database services. So AWS, from AWS side, what AWS offers actually is if you have workloads with relational database needs. If you have heard about RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, and structured query language, SQL based data. So if you're something looking at that side, then RDS, AWS RDS, that is Relational Database Service. It's a service that it provides with different database engines. AWS RDS is a service, and within that service, you can have different database engines. And what are the supported database engines is MySQL, and it has Microsoft SQL, and it provides support for Oracle, and then RDS service provides support for the provisioning MariaDB, and then AWS RDS is there, and it's its own database engine that AWS has like offering is the Aurora. So that is one another thing that this is something to RDS. This is a very popular service, and within that, MySQL Postgres is one another. MySQL Postgres is really something. Postgres and MS SQL. These are the databases that will be really used for the relational database needs, and all these services will be discussed in the great detail. That is something for the RDS. And if you have NoSQL databases, that is not the relational. So NoSQL database from AWS offering is what AWS provides services. This is the DynamoDB. That's a very popular service, AWS DynamoDB. And it is used in a lot of the serverless projects, and by the API gateway, Lambda, and then it is the DynamoDB is there. So this is kind of like a flow, and this is many other things, but that is a NoSQL database. If it's something it is that you think about, it's the DynamoDB, that is of the NoSQL from AWS offering. And these are some of important, and then I'll also provide some details about Redshift. Redshift is a data warehouse actually, and so when you are working on some transactional data, when within the application data, that is RDS, but your analytical needs or your analytical data that goes into the Redshift. So that is the analytical processing. You have to understand what is transactional database for your applications that is used. You have some of the applications running, and then web applications or whatever. So web application, you're not connecting to Redshift directly. Like I'm just kind of providing you some of how it has to be, with the understanding of what the difference in the RDS and what is going to use the Redshift. So Redshift is mostly the analytical processing, and all the analytical data will be there in Redshift. So that is something to understand. And so we discuss the relational database, NoSQL. We discuss the data warehouse, and for analytical processing is from AWS side is most popular is the Redshift. And then also I'll provide some details of a graph database that is not really like it is. What I mean to say is it's not using if you can think about maybe a machine learning projects or kind of. So if anything about the graph database, it creates from documents and everything, that will be created into the graph. So the AWS Neptune is something really very interesting to know if somebody is working in on the graph knowledge graph creation, and this is something one another different concept. And if you do not know what the graph database creation, and you just don't really mm, don't worry much about it. But yeah, AWS Neptune is for the graph database. And I think this is something about, so we discussed networking, we discuss the databases. Now I would like to discuss some of the compute resources. So like computer resources for your compute workload. This is something, it is AWS EC2, that is Elastic Compute Cloud. And this is something you have, these are the virtual machines that are, and then from the AWS services there, I discussed earlier also in my videos some of the details. I won't go too much into AWS EC2 right now, but this is something you can use for your compute needs on, and then you have to provision your own servers, and within the service for Windows or Linux you can, and then the Amazon like AMIs can be used based on whatever, like the OS, or as per your requirements, and then as per your requirements the compute memory and the storage, so it can be assigned within, so it all included in the service, that within then while you provision you can provide all the details. This is something for your compute needs, and on that so within the EC2 you're provisioning Linux servers, you're provisioning Windows servers, mostly the Linux servers are used in the organization. Windows servers are also there, so I'm not saying like that, but yeah, mostly the workloads things, and that's happening is on the Linux servers. And yeah, that is something you have to really understand, and then for sure you have to know about it, EC2s and everything. And for maybe you're having like a web application, you're like deployed on the EC2, some processing, some big processings and things like that. So depending on that, the compute needs, the memory needs, and all that can be provided. That is one thing. And then AWS Lambda is there. This is now I'm coming into the serverless side. Here you provision a server. For EC2 you provision your own operating system, Windows or Linux, something within the EC2 service. Okay, that is your provisioning. But now there is serverless options from AWS, but each of it has its own this compute services that are provided, has different use cases, and some, for example, AWS Lambda is there, and you can use Lambda for Lambda is a really very popular service, and then you have to really understand. I'll have a dedicated video, all of that what I'm discussing, the services and everything. I'll have like a dedicated videos to understand more and into the deep concepts. So AWS, like how AWS Lambda is used, is it can be for mostly AWS Lambda. You think it's a serverless project, okay? Again, I would say if there is a backend, I've discussed the proxy can be for the API gateway. A proxy can be the Lambda compute can be used, and what it has in Lambda supports some SDKs. Okay, how it works. Okay, the Lambda service is there. Within that Lambda, you use one of the SDK. Either there are like so like supported from AWS is Python, and then .NET is there, Node.js is there. It's kind of like that. There are a few other SDKs that are supported in the SDKs that are supported for writing code into the and working with the AWS services. So, and how like some of the use cases for AWS Lambda, maybe you're triggering an event, some S3 bucket is there. The object is their object. As soon as the object is stored in like object is actually like a put object and into S3 bucket. So event happened, you can, there are a lambda you can trigger. That object you can then do work of using the lambda, the code. You can take that file or whatever, the image or something, then you can process it through the lambda code. That is one of the thing. And then lambda can also be used in managing other it's used in the serverless project. It can be used in the what is that like the put object event trigger. I said that can be used, and then lambda can be used in many other, there are many other things that can it's writing a bunch of code, and then you put it in lambda, and then you invoke the lambda function somehow, either to the trigger or the something invoking, and once you invoke the code, the handler will run the lambda handler will runs the code. So that is something you have to understand, and lambda in depth, and all into the private deployment, and all the execution rules of it, everything. We will discuss when it comes to the service individual discussion. I'll discuss more in details for the lambda service. One another compute option. Now I will come to one another compute option. I don't want to make this video so long, very long. So there are so many other services to discuss, and I'll go through these services on a very high level, and in later videos this will be coming into more discussions. So another compute option, if you think, is about ECS. So this is the container services, and then a container, like this is something you have to be familiar with, and the Docker containers actually, then you can have those Docker containers to the on the ECS service as a task, is the ECS task. So you have to really, like in some of the compute needs, and if you're using the serverless projects, ECS is used, you really have to understand what all about ECS and its task, how the creation of the image, storing of the image into the ECR or any other repository. So repositories for image repositories as using is the ECR, and they can be other providers, and for the Docker images and for other repo. But from what AWS offers for storing, so what you do, you use like a like create a Docker image and then store it in the repository that is in the ECR, and that is the image repository from AWS offering. So that is, and then from when you have the images of like an application created, first before storing in the ECR, you will have like a Docker file running everything. It fetches some base image, and then it just adds up the code, do some configuration all through the Docker file and everything, and that will be stored into the container container registry actually, right? Yes, ECR. So it will be stored in that. So it's a repository for the images, and then when you have like all the image created application images there, then you can use that the Docker images, those from the ECR to the task in the ECS service, and we'll discuss again later about everything, how the task and what all, and then so many options of about ECS individually. That is something. So I will. I think EC2, Lambda, ECS. I think for now the compute. I will go on to some of the other services. So let's looking into some what is that? Maybe some monitoring monitoring services. Okay, monitoring and logging. So when you think about monitoring, there it is CloudWatch from AWS offering. Logging, monitoring and logging. That kind of monitoring is metrics for the resources created. So what I mean by that is when you have like infrastructure provisioned, and where the EC2 is there, RDS databases are there, and other resources are there. So you should know like what's going on in there, and how, who is monitoring that, and what are the metrics for it, what are the performance metrics for this, how much is the CPU, what kind of how much, what level, how much like your own Windows operating system is there in your like a desktop maybe, right? Example, you're having your you will check if you go task manager, you check your own CPU, you have monitoring. How about AWS resources? So that is something like I'm just giving one just basic, some of the examples I give is, it might not 100% fit, but it's something for you to understand about where I'm coming from. So this is something. And then when you for monitoring needs, if you, for example, you're monitoring EC2 server, it's a CPU, so a metrics will be there in the CloudWatch metrics. So CloudWatch, when you think, there are a few different things: metrics, logs, CloudWatch logs, and the alarms are there, dashboard is there, things like that. So this is all within CloudWatch. So what CloudWatch metrics, it will more, you think about performance metrics for the resources. Any performance, anything about the resources, infrastructure, EC2, RDS database, any other service, what is all the metrics, it will, the performance metrics will be sent to the CloudWatch metrics. And then logs, within that you can create your own logs. Those logs can be logs. Metrics are different than the logs. Metrics are the performance metrics within the CloudWatch service. And then logs, you push the logs to the CloudWatch. That is something you have to understand, and it's really very important. All the applications, all the resources are sending logs to CloudWatch, and then you have to configure the logs to be sent it to the CloudWatch. That is CloudWatch service technique, basically try to understand that, and then how it is related to API gateway, Lambda, how it is to the EC2, how it is to how it's also all the different services are like sending logs, metrics, and everything into the CloudWatch. And the dashboards are just maybe one place, that dashboard that you can create, and it will have a different set of metrics will be shown, or you want to have like at one glance, like at one time, like you want to see some of few of the metric that you really want to see it, keep watching. So you can create like a dashboard in CloudWatch, and then in that you'll have some of the metrics created, metrics added there, so you can view it as on the dashboard. CloudWatch alarm is there. If a metric it breaches some threshold, so you can set that alarms to trigger, and that is used. Maybe I'll discuss some of the auto scaling. So one of the need is about the auto scaling. So it is something you can use the metrics like alarm actually, alarms for based on if the threshold is reached, then do this. If, for the alarm triggers and things like that. So maybe CPU, if it is more than some 80%, 70%, it's kind of like that. So those are alarms. So metrics are all the performance metrics, logs, your customized logs you're sending to your CloudWatch, and yeah, that is the dashboards are there, alarms are there, a few other things. CloudWatch is really very interesting service. And then CloudTrail, all the APIs, all the events that is happening logs in into the CloudTrail. So what is the different? So any APIs, that APIs is to see everything, resources or everything. This is the APIs offering from AWS. So, and then anything that you work to the resources, that is the hitting of that service, or it's logged into the CloudTrail. And that's a different logs. There's just API logs, infrastructure, and the application logs and other these kind of logs can be customized to send it to the CloudWatch. That is one thing. API logs, it is sent to the CloudTrail. So this is something on a very high level. When I go more detail, I'll discuss more about the service. And I think CloudTrail, CloudWatch and CloudTrail, it is something for you to understand. And yeah, let's then look into their service. Maybe I'll save some storage. Okay, that's really very interesting. And S3, it's a very popular, every application, every project, here and there they will have some S3 to dump some of the content there. And this is really very important to understand all the S3 objects. It's how the object is there in S3 bucket, and the put event, delete event, all the S3 object events. Objects are nothing but some of the images, some of the files, some like all the that, and but anyway, I'll provide more details later for S3. But the S3 is a very important service. It's if you don't know S3 when you go to work, it means you do not even have started. So that is something about S3 bucket, and it's a simple storage service. S3, so S simple storage service, and objects are stored, and it's for the object storage. And then it has concepts like versioning, different versions of the object, and then life cycle of the objects. That is something that you have to understand about S3 objects. And you have to there are many things, and how the API events to the S3 bucket. So this is pretty much the policies, the resource-based policy of S3 bucket that you have to understand. And what is that? This is really very popular service. Any project, anything that you're working, some here and there, they will have S3. And that is something about the object storage. I'll discuss some of the security, how like securing the applications. And I won't go too much at all about, because I think security is AWS is a very wide concept, and there's many things involved. And it's just when just the basic understanding of what security is, and securing the applications, securing the infrastructure, things like that. Maybe the authentication, authorization, I'll mix this security and authentication and authorizations together. That is something what I think is go hand in hand. And IAM is some AWS IAM is really something that you have to understand about it. See, IAM, I'll discuss the resource by the service by service. So let's do something, some few minutes on to just some understanding of the IAM. IAM, it has user groups or things, and then it's very important is the IAM roles. Actually, I would like to say you have to understand how IAM roles, and how it is the policies. IAM, within the IAM roles, you can have the policies attached, and the permissions. So these IAM roles can be IAM roles can be attached to the AWS services, and then the service will have permissions for accessing other AWS services. This is something, for example, if you have Lambda execution role. IAM role will be created, an execution role, and then at that execution role it will have some policies, all the policies and the permissions that are provided, and those based on those, then Lambda can access secrets manager, it can access some the other DynamoDB, it can access some system manager parameter store. So so Lambda needs permissions from to access other services. It's not just Lambda. IAM roles is not the server just it can be any services, not just the service. It is actually some federated identities getting logging in into the AWS. So those are some more detailed and the broad concepts of IAM rules. That is something to understand. I really think the IAM roles, policies, and the permissions, how it is assigned, how the execution roles, how the federated identities roles, how this is something really will be very helpful for you when you are working on the applications and the projects. So that is one another thing. And yeah, so we were like discussing the security. Cognitive is there, that can be used in some authentication for API gateway authentication, some other use cases for Cognito. I won't go too much into Cognito now, but yeah, really IAM is really their IAM rules. You have to know everything, and then Cognito is one another service. So that is that will be that you should know. And maybe I'm thinking about within about encryption. Let's say about encryption, and when you're encrypting any data, anything that has to be encrypted, so all the flow, the workflow, the data, or storage within the storage, like anything, if it is in the S3 bucket, if it is sitting in the RDS database, if it is sitting in the KMS, and wherever the data is, wherever any kind of a data is, the encryption has to be done. And without when you're working in an organization, and when you're really working, there is nothing that is stored or there without encrypting it with some sort of the encryption keys. So AWS KMS is something more about encrypting and encryption of creating the server-side encryption. For example, in the S3 bucket, you can use the AWS KMS key. So that is something you have to understand. Encryption in and the KMS, AWS KMS for your in the real time. This is really needed. So like S3, KMS, IAM, and then I discussed the compute, networking, and monitoring, logging, something. These are all the things that you have to know for sure. Other security related things are maybe AWS Inspector. That is something, all the vulnerabilities from for example, you have the ECS, and then there are like vulnerabilities. So those can be actually pushed into the AWS Inspector. So that is something you have to know. It's important to. It's good to know, actually, I would say. Inspector and all the how it is used in listing out all the vulnerabilities, and then the patches to be applied to that, or like fixing those vulnerabilities somehow. So for like ECS tasks, like image ECR image vulnerabilities, image vulnerabilities. So I'm correcting myself. So, but anyway, and some EC2s also. So it is something AWS Inspector that you might have to see. It's good to see, actually. And as I said, for security related, I'll go so much. It is so much. It's encryption. It's is proxies used, it's the subnetting, how the subnetting can be done, how things can be done. So it's just a broader concept. That is something I would like to bring that in really great detail in my other videos. So that is something about securing the applications. And uh, yeah, these are some of the things that I have discussed. And then AWS organizations, this is really, I would like to, I want people to understand, at least in the high level, what is it is a AWS organization is, because one organization have many accounts, multi accounts, all then managing or centralized managing for those AWS accounts, AWS organizations is used. And that is really very important to understand in great detail. Great detail, I would like to say, like some understanding, actually some understanding of AWS organization and how it is related. At least you should know the service. And then the SCPs, the policies that is attached to within the AWS organizations. It is the organizational units are there within that. And so yeah, this is something about AWS organizations for managing multiple accounts as in a centralized way. So this is something that. And I think I would also like to bring some other services here to discussion. And SSM, Systems Manager Parameter Store. I will say something more about System Manager later in my video, but Systems Manager Parameter Store. System Manager, it has some of the different things like SSM document, I guess, the run command is there, the patch manager is there, a few things are there like already in Systems Manager. And one another thing is the Parameter Store. So this is highly used, the SSM Parameter Store. So mostly you can refer that SSM params or parameter store. So it's technically having some of your the links to the maybe what are the keys, KMS keys, what are, like, I'm just saying you can have like it is the strings can be stored in there in the SSM, and then later referring into the application. That is really SSM parameter store is used for, although SSM is more broader. Systems Manager is actually more broader, but then the SSM parameter store can be used. You should know about SSM parameter store. At least if you do not know everything about Systems Manager, you must know SSM parameter store and how the strings can be stored and used in the applications later. That is one thing. And then the secrets, some of the secrets, for example, like a database credentials, and that is stored in the Secrets Manager, AWS Secrets Manager. It's really very important. And AWS Secrets Manager has integration with RDS. That is from AWS itself. That is one aspect of it. Although you can have any secret, you can store that it in the AWS Secrets Manager, and then refer it in your application. That is encrypted. You have to have encryption. Is there must for anything that you store, and you use AWS KMS for encrypting that secret. So Secret Manager is a service. You store some secret and then you encrypt it using KMS of that. So for example, you Secret Manager, you stored the database credentials, password, and then you encrypt it using a KMS key. So the two different services, but you're encrypting that with the KMS key, and then but you're having a secret stored in the Secrets Manager, and later referring that password of a database or something to in your application. And also Secrets Manager has an integration with RDS as well that I have mentioned. So as the RDS database password is rotated, so it is rotated in the Secrets Manager. So that rotation also, if you understand, is really good. And That's about that. And some other services now, maybe I would say the automation. It is for automation, AWS offering the pipeline. Actually, it is something code commit is the AWS offering. Is a repository. How GitHub is, how Bitbucket is. So from AWS, sorry, so from AWS it is code commit, and that's a code repo. Any you create your all the templates and then store it in the code commit. That is a repo. And then by if not, if organizations not using code commit, GitHub is really something there is used. And code and then actually Bitbucket. So this comes in the code repositories: code commit, GitHub, Bitbucket. And then your code is there, the application code is there, and then build a tool, build an infrastructure deployment, and the building of the application. Code build is used, and that it build from it fetches from the code commit and then builds the application. That is and then deploys the structure. That is something. It's the automation, the build tools. Now, some configuration management or the application deployment from AWS offering. There are some of the nothing, and that is something for application deployment. You could use code deploy for deploying the application into the EC2. So EC2 provisioning itself is a different thing, but when you have application deployment within that, you have like a web application. So you're provisioning the EC2 instance. That's one aspect of it. And then when you're also doing application deployment to the EC2 instance, that's a different aspect, different thing. And you could use code deploy now for application deployment. There are a bunch of other services, and also here I would also like to discuss some of the configuration management services and the tools as well. SSM can also be used for some application configuration needs for the operating systems, and any deployments, agent deployments, and things like that. So AWS SSM, like I was mentioning about SSM, parameter stores, systems manager. So within systems manager, it is systems manager document is there. Systems manager, some of these services can be used for the configuration management of the operating systems. And also other like tools is the configuration management tools. You must have heard about outside AWS is something Ansible that can do that work, and it can do the configuration management, it do the application deployment. So that is all about something. These are all the automation DevOps tools, you could say. You can say some of the pipelines, CI/CD pipeline tools, where you use the repositories, you use the build tools, you use configuration management tools, you use kind of things like that. So Ansible is something outside of AWS. It is not the AWS offering, but something code build, code commit, code build, code deploy. This is something that AWS offering. And systems manager, document, these are something AWS offering. And that is something it's really good for you to know. I think the video it is getting so long, but I would really let me do some of more services, the more core important services I think I feel you should know. I will really say about EFS. It's Elastic File System. This is something, it connects to the Linux machines, and that is something. It is you have like a different systems, and then you have it can be connected to the Elastic File System, and that is it has it's like a for multiple EC2 machines are there, and then you it's a centralized. If you want a centralized place for the file system, then you use EFS, Elastic File System. That is something is really you should understand. And EFS and AWS Backup Service. This is something like AWS Backup Service is there. What AWS Backup Services does is it it has the it can store the images. It's a centralized place for storing of the images of EC2 images and the RDS snapshots and the EBS volume snapshots. EBS I think you have to know also. EBS is also one of yeah, but yeah, let's complete the AWS backup service first, then I'll come to you. EBS is actually nothing but it is like attached to the EC2 instances as a file system. Think as about your hard drive, hard disk on your computer. It's something like that. It is like the EBS. It comes in. It is attached to the EC2 instances. So EBS volumes, and then so AWS backup service. I was saying AWS backup service. It can store EBS volume snapshot, EC2 images, RDS snapshots, and it's a centralized place to you can create like a backup plans and the backup vaults. Sorry. So for that storing of those snapshots or images, and then later you can use it for the restore of the EC2 machines kind of. So that is one another nothing AWS backup. And machine learning things. If you want, if you are working on some machine learning projects, SageMaker and AWS Bedrock, AWS SageMaker and AWS Bedrock, everything about it, and then definitely all the other services as well. But something machine learning in the platform provided is the AWS SageMaker and AWS Bedrock, and that's there. And what I think these are main core services, and so we discuss compute, networking, monitoring, security, and then this organization, AWS organizations, encryption. We discuss some of the backup, one of the backup service, Elastic File System, and some automation services and tools, some services they use for storing the strings and the passwords as well. And then very important is all the infrastructure as code as well. I forgot to mention that it's something infrastructure as code. It is from AWS offering. It is AWS CloudFormation. That is the core of the infrastructure development. And then and then also if you want to use something in your own programming language to manage the infrastructure, for example Python, TypeScript, kind of like that, then you can use AWS CDK. So this comes in within the infrastructure as code. So, and as I mentioned, all my videos will be more and more like things randomly put together, and then to understand and hold the flow of it, the concept of it, and really going up through will give you the understanding of how in the real time things work. And so there's a lot of things I will discuss. And these are not the services are not limited to this. I must be missing a lot of like some of those important services as well, but there are like a bunch of the AWS server provide more than 200 some service, and are like I do not know the exact number right now, but there's a lot of services that AWS provides. And the core services, the important services, then you should know in great detail. This is what something I have mentioned in this video, and then go list that out and then go work on it. And I'll have on all the in great details everything that will be for each of the service. I'll try to have that created, but these videos will be more on the high level understanding so far, and I will get into more great detail as well in service by service. So I think that is really something I would think would be enough, because it's something. It's just almost close to an hour now, and yeah, let's see in to the other video. Thanks.